Hello, and welcome to English 103. I am Lori Vale, the instructor for this course, and last week's video was using an old video, this week, brand new material. So there's only a few things I want to touch base with you about this week. These videos will get a little more complex as we go along, but at the start of the course, it's just kind of orienting everyone back to what we all need to know to be as successful as possible. And probably the best advice I can give you at this point is to be sure, this is going to sound stupid because I'm only talking to the people who are watching the videos, but be sure you watch the videos. You might even take notes for yourself as you watch the videos. I give a lot of information in these that it is cumbersome to get in other ways. You have a lot to read, and you do need to know the things that I put in our Blackboard class that are documents that give you information about what our class is like and what the expectations are, when I'll grade, when I won't grade, when I'm online, when I'm not online. I'm already getting a lot of emails that ask questions that make it clear to me that you haven't read all of the foundational documents that are there for the class and that you're maybe not watching the videos. So if I put out a message that says, hey folks, watch the videos, and you're watching them, I'm not talking to you, so you get to feel really good about yourself. And if you get the message and it says, hey folks, watch the videos, and you haven't been, probably want to go back and take a look at the ones that I've posted along the way because they're all full of super useful information. And it's a lot of stuff at one time, so it's a convenient way to get information. The thing I'm looking for you to do as you listened to the podcast, as you start to read from the chapters and from Weapons of Math Destruction this coming week, is for you to be asking lots of questions of the text and of yourself as you read and making lots of connections with what the text has to say. That's really the crux of it all. If you're giving me feedback in discussion board and in the writing that you do, that summary, you're missing the point. I've read it. I'm not trying to prove to myself you read it, so I don't need any summary from you. What I need is deep connections with what you're reading. So, oh, this makes me think of this other thing over here, or it reminds me of something I read over here that has a similar outcome or similar information. And I'm looking for questions that you can ask of the text and of yourself that show you're engaging with the text, engaging in that way that our authors talk about in the textbook. I'm also looking for you to understand things as deeply as possible. So we all think we know what a word means, but more often than not, we don't really know what a word means. We're just kind of guessing because we've been taught to do that in our K-12 education. That's a really bad idea once you get to higher ed. That's a really bad idea in real life. When you sign a contract, you need to know what that contract means, and that means looking up words that seem like they're pretty clear just to make sure that in this nuanced way we're understanding how they're being used. So, stay on top of things by keeping up with the reading. Look up things you don't understand, ask lots of questions of yourself and of the text, even maybe ask questions of your fellows in the discussion board. I'm loving seeing the discussions going on already and the ways that you're supporting each other, but also challenging each other to think differently. That challenge part is hard, but that's the part we're going for because that's the deep learning. There's two quick things that I want to cover about this last week's listening. Listening is not the same as reading skills, but it employs some of the same skills, so I started you off easy. And the only thing you had to read this last week very effectively is the questions I asked. So it's kind of interesting to go through and see how many people for question 5 read that question really, really badly. If you read it as, tell me what you thought was interesting, then you misread it. What I asked is, what did I find interesting? And that means you had to think like a teacher. Some of you had brilliant responses to this, and I really appreciate you putting in the time and thought and engagement. What you gave when you said, here's what I think and here's why, is exactly what I'm looking for in these discussions and in the academic work that we're doing. So if you are wondering what looks like good work, go dig through those responses for where you see folks saying, here's what I think you would want to find interesting as a teacher, and here's why I think it, because that's a really good example of what I'm looking for. And for those of you who tried really hard to figure out what it is I would want, most of you did a great job of justifying why you chose what you chose, but interestingly, not one person got it right. The thing I found most interesting, and there's no way you should have known this, which is why you didn't get it wrong, it was just something to think about, it was like exercise for your brain, is the part where Laurie Santos talks about brains sucking. I find it most interesting because we all believe what our brains tell us. But what social psychology tells us, and other parts of developmental psychology as well, is that our brains are not reliable. Our brains tell us things that aren't true, which means just thinking and feeling that it's true guarantees nothing. And that's super interesting when we've been taught to rely on our gut responses to things as a way of knowing about the world. So as you go into this class and start really getting into the meat of it, hold on to that idea. All of our brains, not just your brain, my brain, everybody's brain, all of our brains suck. And that's interesting. If you have any questions, email me. I'd be delighted to answer them. And you'll also notice that some of you have an extra 10 points on the quiz because the question about what is connected for readers when they're reading critically is the local, the national, and the global. And a lot of folks didn't type it in with commas in the right place and got it wrong according to the computer. But if your text said what was there, I gave you credit for it. So take a look at your quiz and see that that correction has been made if you answered correctly. Let me know what I can do for you in this coming week, and get busy.